or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for today, Tuesday, April 21st of 2026. Your readers today are
Lita
and JJ Patek, and we'll open as we always do with the weather. And it's a beautiful day out right now. It's a little chilly, but great. Turning out cloudy today. Oh well, with a shower in the area late in the afternoon with a high of 54. A passing shower or two tonight, overcast in the evening, then partly cloudy late with a low of 46. Tomorrow, Wednesday, we will have some sun and a high of 61. Back to that, and a low of 41. Thursday will be partly sunny and nice with a high of 64 and a low of 48. Friday, we'll have showers around with a high of 67 and a low of 48. Saturday, it's going to be cloudy and cooler, but not by much. 59 for the high, 44 for the low. Sunday, we'll have times of clouds and sun with a high of 58, low of 47. And Monday, we're going to have a high of 57 and a low of 44. Yesterday's high was 38 and the low was 29, so things are improving. The normal high for the date is 57. The normal low is 38. The record high was 84 degrees back in 1987. And the record low was 20 degrees back in 1926, and last year's high was 55, and last year's low is 37. For the national extremes, the high was 90 degrees in Blythe, California, and the low was 7 degrees in Grand Marais, Minnesota. The sun rose this morning at 6:24 a.m. It sets tonight at 8:05 p.m. Days are getting longer. And the moon will rise at 9:09, just a couple more minutes, and it will set at 12:44 a.m. So that's the weather.
Do you know that the sun will not set after 8 o'clock or before 8 p.m. from now until the end of August? And yes!
It'll be nice to have a little bit of light later. I can sit on a porch and enjoy
it.
It
Will be nice. And let's talk a little Sabres. One win down, but you need 15 to go for the ultimate goal. We paused this civic celebration that has gone viral on social media and is looping on ESPN and the NHL Network for a quick reality check. Sunday night for the Buffalo Sabres was game one of round one. Officially, nothing more. Spiritually, maybe a lot more. One win down, but still 15 more is the celebration of a lifetime. Yes, 15 games, folks.
Jeez.
KeyBank Center and its environs were quiet at the noon hour Monday, but that won't be the case Tuesday night for Game 2 between the Sabres and the Bruins. And it absolutely wasn't the scene Sunday night when the blue and gold thrilled the Western New York and their fans across the nation with a 4-3 win that lands high on the list of most incredible playoff games we've ever seen in the 7-1-6. We waited 15 years to finally watch one, and we got that. It's still hard to believe. Sabres winger Alex Tuch, remember, grew up as a child of the Goathead jerseys in suburban Syracuse as a neighbor of former Buffalo center Tim Connolly. This was the moment Tuch waited for and pictured since the day he was traded here for Jack Eichel 4.5 years ago. Tuch was falling into a 2-0 hole early in the third, made the moment more stressful. But did the atmosphere match the dreams? You bet. I can't even put it into words, Tuch said at the arena Monday as the Sabres held meetings and only a few guys hit the ice. The excitement, the energy, the emotion, all of it was incredible. Fans brought it, right from warm-ups, honestly. I went out there before the game and I couldn't believe it. It was packed. It was awesome. We're going to need that going forward. I was like, wow, this is unbelievable. This is amazing. Like, let's go. We've got playoff hockey in Buffalo. Playoff hockey is all about emotion, of course. How will the Bruins respond to a devastating defeat, and how do the Sabres park a game of their lives and move on to Tuesday? You look at the game, a later game, 7:42 p.m. face-off, and how physical and demanding the game was to come back late to win, and emotionally, you've got to decompress, said Lindy Ruff. And understandably so. Probably players didn't sleep that well when you're on such a high. Today we just chose to stay off the ice. We'll skate as a team tomorrow and get as much rest as we can and be ready to go. Ruff joked after Sunday's game that his bunch of players with no playoff experience now have one game of it, and what a doozy it is. It's great. I think we can all settle in a little now, winger Jack Quinn said on Monday. We know what to expect, and we know what the energy is going to be like and the emotions. The warm-up was still a big talking point as well on Monday. The seating bowl was basically full for it, roughly 40 minutes before face-off. I've seen that at Stanley Cup final games in places like Vegas and Nashville, never here. Head coaches are always in their office during that pregame period, but the word Ruff got from his assistants watching the warm-up was completely on point. You always kind of get the report, and it was good to hear that, he said with a laugh. They came back with the report that this building is going to be loud, and I think their assessment was pretty good. Indeed, KeyBank rocked and it rolled Sunday. I got lots of texts and messages into Monday when I said at the moment of Matthias Samuelsson's goal Sunday that the press box was vibrating. A longtime Toronto writer reached out to me and said he felt similar sensations during Team Canada game at the 2010 Winter Olympics in Vancouver. I can also report firsthand that the upper deck of Yankee Stadium famously shook right after Scott Rosia's dramatic tying home run in the ninth inning of Game 5 in 2001 World Series against Arizona. And I can attest to that during a Miami and Bills game, the top thing shaking.
Yeah.
Now, I was also in the house when the folks at Rogers Center in Toronto created jet plane levels of noise upon Jose Bautista's bat flip home run in the 2015 playoffs and after George Springer's ALCS winning home run against Seattle last October. But nothing in an arena rivals the waves of sound we heard when Samuelsson put the Sabres ahead on Monday. The only things close might be the Chris Drury, Maxim Afinogenov goals in Game 5 against the Rangers in 2007, or maybe the foghorn-enhanced final seconds of the Chicago Blackhawks 2015 Cup clincher in United Center. So with all the build-up to Game 1 over, we move on to the ebbs and flows of the series. Can the Bruins figure out how to stop Tage Thompson while Buffalo plots to frustrate Dave Pastrnak? Did the Sabres solve Jeremy Swayman in the third period after rolling snake eyes for 52 minutes? Will the more physical Bruins, if you care to believe first-year coach Marco Sturm, continue to get hit around the rink like they were Sunday? For having so many guys never in the playoffs before, the Sabres did a good job staying in the battle and not letting frustration overcome them. It's definitely a bit of a roller coaster, but I think you've just got to keep pushing and see what happens, Quinn said. We felt like we were playing well. We just wanted to keep pressing, and we were able to get a few. The social media images are everywhere. Television and radio stations on both sides of the border Monday couldn't stop talking about the Sabres and their fans, the ones inside the arena and the wonderfully wacko ones outside. It puts a smile on your face for sure, Ruff said. It tells you what a great hockey town it is. I think it's a combination of, it's been a long time, way too long, and our city has been begging for something like this. It wasn't looking good, and then all of a sudden, you pour out 4 goals in the last 8 minutes, and if there was a chance of bringing the building down, the fans were going to try and probably wreck Canal Side, I heard too. Pace yourselves, people. It was just the first one. Leave the buildings and the grounds intact. Lots more to come.
Boy, that was something else. You could spend more time talking about the game.
Yeah, I know. It was fantastic.
Well, on a sadder note from Dan Herbeck, the Gilgo Beach serial killer inflicts pain on the family of the Buffalo victim. There's a disturbing Buffalo connection to the case of Rex Huderman, the sadistic serial killer who will be sentenced next month for murdering young women and burying their bodies near Long Island's Gilgo Beach. Police said one of Huderman's 8 known victims was a 24-year-old woman from Buffalo whose life took some tragic turns after she moved to New York City with the hopes of opening her own hairstyling studio. Prosecutors and police in Suffolk County said Melissa Bartholomew, who still has relatives in Buffalo, was working as an escort when Huderman strangled her and buried her body in July 2009. On July 10th of 2009, after seeing an online advertisement for her services, Huderman utilized a burner phone to arrange to meet with Melissa Bartholomew. That evening, Huderman picked up Miss Bartholomew and ultimately strangled her, the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office said after Huderman pleaded guilty to a series of murders on April 9th. Following her death, Heuermann tied up the remains of Ms. Bartholomew with tape and burlap. Subsequently, the defendant transported the victim's remains to Ocean Parkway, Gilgo Beach. Over a year later, on December 11th of 2010, Ms. Bartholomew's remains were discovered on the north side of Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach. At the time of her death, Bartholomew was survived by her sister, her mother, and stepfather, prosecutors said. Melissa was a graduate of Buffalo South Park High School and the Continental Beauty School in West Seneca, her family said. Heuermann, 62, will be sentenced to 3 consecutive life prison terms plus at least 100 years when he's sentenced on June 17th, District Attorney Raymond Tierney said in a press conference after the guilty plea. The creepy murder case attracted national attention. Heuermann, an architect who lives in a wealthy section of Oyster Bay, Long Island, preyed on women who worked as escorts, police said. Heuermann walked among us, play acting as a normal suburban dad, when in reality all along he was obsessively targeting innocent women for death, he said. Melissa's mother, Lynn Bartholomew of Akron, was quoted as telling NBC News after the guilty plea that her family has suffered every day since Melissa disappeared. Bartholomew said, Heuermann deserves the death is too good for him. It's too easy, the network quoted the grieving mother as saying. She and other family members did not respond to phone and social media messages from the Buffalo News on Thursday and Friday. The family has been through a nightmare all these years, said Stephen M. Cohen, former attorney for Melissa's family. A big part of the nightmare was convincing police to investigate Melissa's death as a legitimate missing persons case after she disappeared. To make a horrifying situation even more painful for the Buffalo family, Heuermann, after killing Melissa, used his victim's cell phone to make harassing, taunting calls to Melissa's 15-year-old sister, Cohen recalled. On one of the calls, Heuermann boasted to the teenage girl that he had raped and killed her sister, police said. Wow. This animal not only murdered Melissa, he tortured her family with these gut-wrenching calls, Cohen said. There's no sentence a judge can impose which can absolutely punish Rex Heuermann. Melissa was living in the Bronx when she disappeared. Cohen said police were initially reluctant to open a missing persons case because she had worked as an escort. Cohen said he asked then Erie County Sheriff Timothy B. Howard to urge New York City police to take the case more seriously. In the summer of 2020, Howard decided under Sheriff Richard T. Donovan to contact New York City police because Donovan had worked closely with the police in New York in the aftermath of the terrorism attacks of September 11th of 2001. Melissa's frustrated and heartbroken mother also called Donovan's administrative assistant, Marilyn Calhoun Allen, to plead for help. Donovan recalled, I had a very good relationship with the NYPD intelligence squad, tremendous police officers. I told them what the family was going through and they carried the ball from there, Donovan told the news on Thursday. They did a really good job. He said the New York City investigators were especially interested when Donovan told them that Melissa's phone was being used to make taunting calls to her sister. 5 taunting and harassing calls were made to Melissa's teenage sister in 2 months after Melissa disappeared, according to court papers filed in Heuermann's case. Donovan said he's proud to have had even a small role in bringing a cruel serial murder to justice. Heuermann eluded police until his arrest in July of 2023. A major break in the case came in 2022 when a state police investigator determined that Heuermann in 2010 owned a Chevrolet Avalanche truck like one that was spotted in a neighborhood where one of the escorts had vanished. That information about the truck put Heuermann on the radar of the Gilgo Beach Task Force. They began investigating the architect's travels, computer searches, and phone records, police said. When the police arrested him, Heuermann initially denied any wrongdoing. I was thankful to hear last week that he pleaded guilty and there will be no trial, Donovan said. I would hate for the family to go through all that with all the details being dragged out. This guy was a monster. Heuermann admitted killing Melissa Bartholomew and 7 other women. As part of his plea deal, Heuermann agreed to cooperate with FBI agents and help them develop procedures for identifying future serial killers, police said. Cohen said he hopes the Gilgo Beach murder case has prompted police to take a different view toward crimes targeting escorts and sex workers. Melissa first was a daughter, friend, granddaughter, and niece to the people who cared about her. The things she did to make a living should not define her as a human being, Collins said.
Moving over to the editorial section, war with Iran. Well, let me just give you a time check here. You are listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 15 minutes past the hour. From Kathleen Parker. Almost since becoming a U.S. Senator more than 2 decades ago, Lindsey Graham has suffered predictions of his imminent political demise. The timing usually coincides with each re-election bid, which, thus far, hasn't led to defeat. This year, as the Republican seeks his 5th term to represent South Carolina, the chorus of naysayers have been louder than usual, and dire prognostications have seemed more convincing. Graham has some opposition in the GOP primary slated for the 9th of June that appeared promising to those who would prefer a new face. One was former Lieutenant Governor Andre Bauer, who withdrew last August. The others, Paul Dance, an architect of the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025, whom Tucker Carlson endorsed, also pulled out recently. Keep in mind that nobody goes broke here betting on an incumbent, no matter who they are or how bad they may be. 2 words are instructive: Strom Thurmond. Voters in one of America's reddest states didn't vote Thurmond out of office ever. The Dixiecrat turned Republican retired in January 2003 at 100 years old, that is, having served 48 years in the Senate for South Carolina. Whereupon a relatively young Graham, now 70, grabbed the baton and hasn't let go. There's some basis for the early declaration of Graham's possible exit. President Trump's endorsement isn't what it once was, thanks to, so many things. For one, there's the Iran war, which gives Graham's campaign to get Trump on board may as well be called Graham's war. Then there's the rising gas prices and Trump's ignorant and ignominious posting of an AI-generated image showing him ministering to the sick as if he was Jesus Christ. Once the fire and brimstone started rocketing through the religious right, Trump backpedaled, saying he thought the image depicted him as a Red Cross doctor.
Boy.
Sure, that makes perfect sense. And some recent polling cited in the news stories as evidence of Graham's flagging popularity is not that recent. One Winthrop University poll showing Graham's approval rating among registered voters at only 38% was conducted in November. Trump wasn't receiving rave reviews either. Among registered voters in South Carolina, 51% of those expressing an opinion disapproved of Trump's handling of his presidency, but registered Republican voters told a different story. Among his base, 9 out of 10 Republicans approved of the job Trump is doing, and 7 out of 10 approved of Graham's performance. More recent polling has found Graham comfortably leading against the remaining primary candidates. In light of other factors unique to South Carolina, the night is young. In the summertime, when the state's population basically vacates to the beaches or mountains, a lot can change with or without a war depressing spirits. Except for massive traffic problems thanks to the great migration of people to the Palmetto State from everywhere, the living is easy. During the slow months, politics is far from the minds of the state's barefoot and hiking cohorts. The nation's most vexing Iran-centric problems could be resolved soon, though only a fool would risk a prediction. If Trump's big gamble spirals out of control, Graham will surely become collateral damage. Making the rounds on Sunday's news show, Graham was glibly eloquent in his defense of the war, saying to Fox News' Bret Baier, "There is nobody in the regime that is normal." Well, few would disagree with this assessment, least of all the Iranian people. About 54% of Americans disapprove of the U.S. military action, according to a Real Clear Politics poll average. Graham might suggest that such Americans aren't fully cognizant of the dangers Iran presents to global stability and national security. To Baier, Graham argued that Iran was 2 to 3 weeks away from having enough uranium to create 8 to 10 nuclear bombs when the decision was made to attack. While appearing on Fox News host Sean Hannity's program, Graham spoke directly to Saudi Arabia and proposed a mutual defense agreement against Iran. An ardent supporter and wingman to the president, Graham won't be able to distance himself from the Iran debacle should negotiations go south. If all fails, it will have been Graham's good fortune that he was able to hone his golf strokes as Trump's favorite caddy.
Oh boy.
JJ?
Well, we had the editorials, missing oversight. programs like Save the Michaels must be responsibly run. For the Seneca Babcock Community Association, now Save the Michaels of the World Incorporated. Seneca Babcock had not filed for tax-exempt status in 9 years and found itself out of compliance with the IRS and out of money. It's a mess. Save the Michaels fell under scrutiny by the State Office of Addiction Services and supports OASAS, as reported last month by the News' John Harris. OASAS had previously identified serious fiscal and operational challenges at Save the Michaels and informed ongoing oversight and planning discussions. It's another mess. OASAS said it provided Save the Michaels with a 30-day notice that it plans to discontinue funding on March 29th, a decision that Save the Michaels is appealing, but there's more. In a follow-up story, Harris wrote that the founders of Save the Michaels, Avi and Julie Israel, are suing the organization for more than $600,000. An investigative post reported that Save the Michaels would lose its Erie County funding at a state audit that was finalized in 2024. That was when Avi Israel was still leading the organization. The state audit found fiscal mismanagement at the nonprofit that included advances totaling nearly $40,000 to Avi Israel made from the organization and without board approval. There was unapproved travel out of state and board-approved $25,000 raise for Avi Israel in January 2024 without state Office of Addiction Services and Support's regional office support or approval as required by OASAS-funded providers. What does it all boil down to? Well, just as in the case of Seneca Babcock, looming questions remain. Where was the board? Where was the fiscal governance and oversight and communication? And then there's the shame of it all. Absent any or sufficient supervision, organizations critical to public welfare can fail. When that happens, it leaves people who really need these these services out in the cold. Seneca Babcock has long provided a wide range of important community services, including meals, tutoring, recreational activities, daycare, and more at 5 different neighborhood facilities. Save the Michaels was founded in June 2011 to bring attention and awareness to the effects of opioids after the death by suicide of 20-year-old Michael David Israel, son of Avi and Julie Israel. Its mission was to provide wraparound care to addicted individuals and their families in a small community-based setting. The organization could link individuals to treatment within 24 to 48 hours, answering approximately 55,000 calls annually, according to CEO Jessica Goff, who joined Save the Michaels in 2019 as an administrative assistant and became CEO after Israel's resignation. Since losing its funding, Save the Michaels has been winding down its operations. Its location in Lockport has closed for more than a month, and Save the Michaels attempting to transfer ownership of its Newfane House of Hope program to the Recovery Center of Niagara. The House of Hope program is a 12-bed male residential reintegration program and is already located in the Recovery Center of the Niagara building, and services will remain unchanged. In addition to the 2 canceled contracts with OASAS that were scheduled to run through the end of 2028 and 2029, Save the Michaels has a multi-year $750,000 contract for a new syringe exchange program, of which $183,000 has been sent with the State Health Department. Save the Michaels Lockport location, which is now closed, was a site that offered syringe exchange services. It is indeed a shame to lose a program that answers such an urgent need. It's also a warning to boards that drift from oversight to absence. Buffalo needs organizations that offer critical safety net programs. The lesson is clear. Good intentions are not enough. There must be accountability, transparency, and active governance. Yeah. So, missing oversight. So that's that. And then we have a cartoon, on a little happier note, of a man in desperate need of a shade, lying in his bed with his Buffalo Sabres blanket over him and his head tucked in a dream, with a little hand with pointing upward, that little glove that we have. It says first playoffs win in 15 years. He's got this giant smile on his face, and it says all tucked in. And that's from Adam Ziegler of the Buffalo News.
And from the My View column, submitted by Linda Cassio McNamara of Williamsville, the village theory still applies today. The so-called village theory of cooperatively raising children warms my heart and sustains my optimism. Most members of society love and care about all children as they would their own. Neighbors who keep an eye on the kiddos, help them on and off the bus, open their homes as safe havens, and care about their lives are integral components of extended societal families. Shared DNA is not required. Do we ever really outgrow the need to feel nurtured, valued, and protected where we live? When a neighbor goes on vacation, their home is watched and the pet is cared for. A pot of soup offers comfort and a few meals during someone's convalescence. The street gang appears to help wrestle an unwieldy package into the house. The countless ways we behave as a society belie our differences, underscoring true community cohesiveness and goodwill. My diverse village begins with a vibrant and loving family. Mildly troubling is finding as myself one its matriarchs since our elders have passed. Big shoes to fill. My village includes a treasured group of faithful, caring, devoted, decades-long friends. This network of love and support has eased the unfathomably sad trials and tribulations we've survived. My life is profoundly enriched. My gratitude is immeasurable. A third of our life is spent at work, transforming co-workers into secondary family. We commiserate and celebrate together. 20 years into retirement, I joyfully anticipate connecting with the folks who worked side by side throughout my career. During our gatherings, we share coffee, news, milestones, birthdays, and laughter. Main Street America is part of my village. People at the grocery store, hardware stores, or pharmacies strike up conversations, leaving me thinking about how fortunate to live among interesting people. A thank you for your service to a gentleman sporting his Vietnam vet cap brings a smile to the face of someone who remembers what most could not bear to know. Strangers asking advice about pancake syrup become friendly acquaintances with advice on how to cook frozen berries and sugar to pour over the flapjacks. I learn more about family members, ailments, lost spouses, and grandchildren I'll probably never meet. These connections are subtle, seemingly unremarkable, and transient, often ending with a hug that fills a corner of my heart. In college, my favorite electives in human studies provided an opportunity to study the human condition on many levels. We are social creatures beyond parties, club memberships, and community events, requiring a healthy balance of time with others as well as solitary moments. Introverts, extroverts, and everyone in between interact, and the briefest, most inconsequential connections can positively affect the lives of others. We create the village that sustains and embraces us while raising strong, loving, confident, curious children. The 1969 song by the Hollies, "He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother," is a fitting musical memory from an era where love was the answer. In answer to my rhetorical question, this invertebrate, hippie, peacenik, flower child thinks that we never outgrow the need to feel nurtured, valued, and protected. Peace out. And you are listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 28 minutes past the hour.
And Western New York will benefit from this SEQRA reform. There's another voice, an article about housing by Bruce Levine, who was president of the Third Development Group, LLC. Western New York has long been a region of opportunity with rich history, resilient communities, and a renewed sense of growth. Yet one challenge continues to hold us back: a shortage of safe, affordable housing. Families are paying far too much for rent. Too often, new developments that could provide relief are delayed for years, caught in a web of prolonged regulatory reviews. To that end, Governor Kathy Hochul's proposed changes to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, or SEQRA, in the executive budget could be a game changer for upstate communities like ours. SEQRA was designed in the 1970s with good intentions to ensure that development projects are environmentally responsible, but much but much has changed since then, and far more protection exists at a variety of levels. The outdated SEQRA process has become a roadblock. Lengthy environmental reviews, overlapping local approvals, and procedural uncertainty can create costly delays that discourage developers from investing in affordable housing. For Western New York, where many neighborhoods are still recovering from decades of disinvestment, these delays mean fewer homes for families who desperately need them. The governor's reforms would streamline the review process for certain projects while maintaining robust environmental protections. By clarifying timelines, reducing duplicative reviews, and empowering local governments to act more efficiently, these changes could help affordable housing projects move from paper to reality faster. This certainly allows developers to secure financing, plan construction schedules, and ultimately deliver homes for residents who are waiting now, not years from now. Reforming SEQRA does not mean ignoring the environment. It means balancing the needs of our communities with the reality of the developing process. We can protect waterways, preserve green spaces, and maintain neighborhood character, all while moving urgently needed affordable housing forward. Upstate New Yorkers deserve housing that is safe, affordable, and delivered in a timely manner. It's about time to modernize the rules that have slowed progress for far too long. Let's give Western New York and communities across upstate New York the chance to grow and thrive.
And from Ronald Brownstein, Trump's least popular issue? It turns out to be most of them. It's almost like a bizarre political science experiment. Just how many unpopular policies can one president pursue? From starting a war with Iran to threatening Greenland to building a new White House ballroom, President Trump's unshackled second-term priorities are compounding the mounting electoral risk for his party in November's midterm elections. Trump has always inspired strong emotions, pro and con, but in his first term, Trump pursued relatively few specific policies that big majorities of Americans opposed. He probably generated the biggest backlash with his moves to separate immigrant children from their parents at the border, 2/3 opposition, and limit travel from several Muslim-majority nations, about 3/5 opposition. His other signature policies, the border wall and 2017 tax cut, split the country much more closely between opposition and support. The things that affected people personally, he has majority support for in the first term, primarily on the economy, said Republican pollster Whit Ayers. Trump returned to office in January 2025 with greater freedom to maneuver. Amid widespread disappointment with President Joe Biden's performance, voters in 2024 were fundamentally in agreement with Trump on a lot of issues, said Doug Sosnick, the top White House political advisor for Bill Clinton in his 96 re-election. The Supreme Court's 2024 decision immunizing presidents from criminal consequences for conduct in office removed a potential limit. And unlike his first term, Trump did not feel compelled to provide top administration jobs to Republicans from other party power centers. Indeed, no Republican power centers, independent of Trump, still exist. When Trump first arrived in Washington in 2017, House Speaker Paul Ryan and Senator Majority Leader Mitch McConnell both kept some distance. Trump also faced pushback from other Republicans, not only in Congress, but within his administration, keeping his agenda closer to public opinion, as when opposition from a handful of GOP senators derailed his deeply unpopular 2017 attempt to repeal the Affordable Care Act. By contrast, placating Trump is the top priority for the Congress led by House Speaker Mike Johnson and Senator Majority Leader John Thune. The collapse of these restraints has encouraged Trump to unleash all the impulses he contained in his first term, from attacking Iran to chiseling his name onto the Kennedy Center. Some of the second-term initiatives that have sprung from Trump's Unbound do have majority support. From the onset, most Americans have approved of his moves to control the flow of illegal immigration at the border. Most also approve of the provisions in last year's summer reconciliation bill, reducing taxes on tips and overtime, though in practice, those changes are each benefiting fewer than 1 in 10 households. But these exceptions are dwarfed by the second-term Trump policies, large and small, that face lopsided public opposition. Preponderant majorities of Americans have said in polls they oppose many of his biggest initiatives, including the war in Iran, his tariffs, his health care cuts, and ICE's enforcement of immigration laws. Comparable numbers oppose him tearing down the East Wing and renaming the Kennedy Center. A narrower majority reject his signature One Big Beautiful Bill. The number of Americans in polls who support his desire to acquire Greenland probably isn't much larger than the population of Greenland itself. Across a wide range of domestic and foreign policies, Sosnick says many Trump voters now feel they didn't get what they were signing up for. Meanwhile, the heat shield that protected unpopular policies during Trump's first term has dissolved. Today, far more Americans say his agenda has hurt than helped the economy. The first time around, it was, yeah, I don't like this guy, but something is going to right on the economy, and that dynamic is non-existent today, said Democratic pollster Nick Gorbachev. As Ayers notes, Trump has never worried much about voters outside his coalition, but visible cracks are opening in his base. Depending on the survey, around 30% of Republicans oppose the Iran war and his tariffs, while about one-fifth say immigration enforcement has gone too far and he's wrong to tear down the East Wing. Trump's determination to advance such a consistently unpopular agenda is toxic for his party. Probably only a small share of the Republicans expressing dissatisfaction with him will cross over to vote for Democrats in November's midterm elections, but many of them might not vote at all, even as the intense backlash to Trump's actions captured in these polls is mobilizing Democratic-leaning voters in huge numbers, a dynamic evident in the party's succession of off-year electoral victories since his return. Congressional Republicans, fearful of Trump's social media thunderbolts, have resolutely ignored the mounting evidence of public dissatisfaction and made no effort to curb his excesses. In that they are behaving much as the Republicans who controlled the House and Senate did when the situation in Iraq deteriorated under President George W. Bush before the 2006 election. Republicans then thought they were protecting Bush and each other by declining to pressure him to change course. But what they considered loyalty, voters viewed as arrogance and refusing to reassess policies that had lost the country's confidence. Republicans lost control of both congressional chambers that fall and the presidency 2 years later. That precedent looks more relevant the longer Trump persists in choices at home and abroad that most Americans reject.
And let's see, what time is it?
Nope, you're good.
Right, it's you're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. It's 37 minutes past the hour, and Susan Estrich writes an opinion, a gentle reminder on the kindness of strangers. We need something pleasant. I've been playing in the public arenas of politics and commentary, of columns and television and campaigns for long enough not to pretend that it was all warm and fuzzy back then. It was mean and sometimes scary, but mostly not. Even during the hottest times, we mostly managed to separate the professional from the personal. We disagreed, we fought even. But hate was the exception, and that has changed. The internet is a cesspool of vicious diatribes and personal assaults. That is a nature of discourse. Republican influencers slash at each other, much less at those they oppose, who slash right back. Social media has changed the way we engage in discourse, and no one has done more to coarsen it than its primary user, President Trump. It's ugly out there, which is how a lot of people explain their reluctance to participate in public debate. Or, even worse, in the desperate search for relevance in a world in which only the extreme is relevant, people go for the extremes. I've been attacked for 40 years for coming out as a rape victim and advocating for victims' rights. I've been attacked for being a pro-choice liberal feminist, a Clinton defender. I've been attacked for the causes I champion and the clients I represent. I still don't always read my mail. I read it this week. Last week I wrote a personal column about my daughter's struggle with long COVID and the frustration and the helplessness I feel at the HHS office is closed and funding is cut. And strangers reached out to me, told me they prayed for my daughter and me, and offered hope. It reminded me of the miracle of the internet and its ability to bring comfort to the community, to create community, to communicate meaningfully. This is how we touch each other, and if it doesn't have to be physical satisfaction of a hug, it brings at least its virtual equivalent. I don't often quote Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, but he spoke out last Wednesday at the University of Texas at Austin, appropriately bemoaning the decline of civil discourse and the danger that decline poses for the institutions of civil society. I don't know how you bring back civility in the current environment with social media and name calling and all the people accusing each other of various things in animus. I don't know how you do that, and I fear that's going to infect the institutions such as the court, and judges, etc. in the future, because these are the young people who will be in these jobs. Social media certainly didn't invent name calling and invective, but it amplifies it, simplifies it, rewards it, and thus encourages even more extreme versions. But when I say social media, don't I really mean us? We can blame it all on the algorithms, but they're mostly our mirrors. Still, what I get a glimpse of sometimes is what we are also capable of, and what social media enables and even simplifies, which is the random acts of kindness, the outreach of strangers, the sense of connection that makes us human, and that, perhaps perversely in retrospect, first attracted me to politics. It was not the debate as much as that of common purpose and connection. So to those who wrote to me this week or kept us in your prayers, thank you.
And flipping over to an article that's titled, ICE May Be Kept Away from the Polls. Governor Kathy Hochul may add voting sites to the list of locations that are off limits to federal immigration officers under her proposed $263 billion state budget. Hochul's proposed immigration reforms already would prevent U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents, absent a federal judicial warrant, from entering a host of sensitive locations, houses of worship, schools, preschools, hospitals, and healthcare facilities, libraries, shelters, daycare centers, parks, dorms, and housing accommodations. On Monday, Hochul told reporters in Buffalo she was willing to look at polling sites as well, because that is the fear of many individuals, that ICE agents will be deployed at polling places in black and brown communities throughout our country, and they'll be a deterrent to people voting. It'll be a way to harass individuals, Hochul said. Hochul spoke as the state budget, due on the 1st of April, continued to be late. Hochul, Assembly Speaker Carl Heastie from the Bronx, and Senator Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins from Yonkers have been negotiating the spending plan, but have been stuck on several policy issues. Lawmakers in both houses passed a $5.1 billion extender bill Monday to keep the state funded through Wednesday, with most of it going towards Medicaid, school funding, and payroll, according to lawmakers. It is the fifth extender bill lawmakers have passed since the 1st of April deadline was missed. Hochul's budget would allow New Yorkers to sue federal authorities in state court for alleged violations of their civil rights. She has said she wants to protect New Yorkers from ICE overreach and incidents such as the 7th of January fatal ICE shooting of Renee Nicole Good, 37, and the 24th of January U.S. Customs and Border Protection killing of Alex Preddy, 37, both in Minneapolis. On the 19th of February, Border Patrol agents picked up Rohingya refugee Nurul Amin Shah Alam, 56, a mostly blind, non-English speaking man from the Erie County Jail, and dropped him off outside a closed Tim Hortons near Key Bank Center. He was wearing jail-issued booties instead of shoes and was unable to reach his family. He was found dead 5 days later. His death has been ruled a homicide. Hochul, City Shah Alam's death, has said his family should be allowed to sue the Trump administration in state court, in keeping with her proposal to allow New Yorkers to sue federal government in state court for alleged violations of their civil rights. On Friday, Hochul said she wants to prohibit ICE agents, as well as local and state officers in New York, from covering their faces while interacting with the public. Hochul's latest immigration reform proposals would require officers to need probable cause that a person committed a crime before sharing that information with ICE, It would not include state police or other state officers who are prohibited from disclosing or asking about a person's immigration status under a 2017 executive order. That proposal drew criticism from supporters of the proposed New York for All Act, which would ban law enforcement agencies from assisting ICE in any capacity. Hochul appears open to compromise. I'm not done with it, but we should be pretty close to finalizing what we are all striving for, which is to keep ICE under control in our state, she said.
And from Jonathan Epstein, Buffalo's next development, Falls mulls over 2 local offers for the Rapids Theater. The Rapids Theater in Niagara Falls could be rocking again by year end, 2 years after it abruptly closed amid legal and financial troubles for former owner John L. Hutchins. City officials are considering 2 proposals from local operators to buy, redevelop, and reopen the 1,750-seat venue in the city's north end, which was acquired last year by the Niagara Falls Urban Renewal Agency after its lender initiated foreclosure. Both operators would invest in rehabbing and reviving the 105-year-old theater at 1711 Main Street, and they would get the first shows up and running by early fall, along with banquets, weddings, and other events besides concerts, said Jeremy Geertz, Director of Business Development and Retention for the Niagara County Center of Economic Development and the Niagara County Industrial Development Agency. We're really, really excited it's happening, Geertz said. A committee of representatives from the state, Niagara County, Niagara Falls, Niagara University, and the Regional Land Bank, formerly the Niagara Orleans Regional Land Improvement Corporation, will evaluate the applications and hear presentations from each of the bidders on April 28th before making a decision by the end of May. Geertz described both as solid applications and said it's very competitive. It's going to be tight. Whoever's awarded the property, the community is going to win. Either one, they'll be in good hands, he said. It's going to be a tough decision to make, which is a great problem to have. Originally built in 1921, the former Bellevue Theater operated for 7 years before closing in 1928, then being acquired by Shea Publix Theater Company. It was purchased in the 1940s by a subsidiary of Paramount Pictures and later by the Strand Cataract Theater Corporation, which renamed it the Rapids Theater. Over the ensuing decades, it experienced ups and downs and multiple changes of ownership and name, until Hutchins bought it at a tax auction in 2007. Hutchins, a Lewiston businessman, renovated the theater into a rock music venue that brought a wide range of performers over 14 years, including Blondie, Snoop Doggy, and Eric Church, and the Stone Temple Pilots. But the pandemic brought down his business, and a 3-year government investigation that began in 2021 ultimately led to his guilty plea on charges of defrauding COVID relief programs of $1.8 million. The potential sale and reopening of the Rapids is part of a larger city initiative to revive the largely dormant North End near the police station and library, which is filled with vacant buildings and properties. Officials want to see those properties brought back to life with new storefronts, restaurants, and apartments. Besides the theater, the city also acquired 37 other properties in the same area, including the former Gents building that had been owned by Blue Cardinal Capital after that firm's lender also foreclosed. Using state funds, the city paid $900,000 for the Blue Cardinal properties and $800,000 for the Rapids after Bank on Buffalo and Niagara's Choice Federal Credit Union both agreed to take slight losses in short sales. Officials hoped to redistribute the properties to new owners for various redevelopment projects with a particular focus on new housing for Niagara University to replace the DeVoe neighborhood. But rather than rely on developers and property owners who have previously held on to buildings and parcels for years or even decades without doing anything with them, the city and county are taking a more active role to ensure control of the process. Niagara Falls has been fairly neglected for a couple of decades, Geertz said. Folks would come in, start to collect properties in the hopes and dream that someone would start first. The city is using a development enforcement mortgage which places a special lien on the property to require redevelopment within a specified time frame, or the property would revert back to the city. The days of holding and prospecting and hoping for somebody to start are over, Geert said. The city received a $10 million downtown revitalization initiative grant from the state with a focus on the North End, which is also within the city's waterfront revitalization zone. Niagara Falls also spent $5.5 million on streetscape reconstruction, and both the city and county are for giving back taxes to help property owners. Last year, the city, NCIDA, and the Land Bank kicked off the first process to solicit and select redevelopment proposals for the properties. 4 projects were announced in October, including the $17 million conversion of the 4-story former Gent store at 1708 Main Street into 30 apartments and a vendor market. 3 other projects at 717 to 723 Division Street, 1509 Main, and 2109 Main would convert a vacant house into a short-term rental, turn a former church into an artisan market and antique mall, and create 6 apartments and commercial space in a vacant building. But that still leaves much more than 30 properties, and Rapids is one of the big ones, Geert said. It'll really get some activation down there.
And they finally set up a tariff refund system, and thousands have filed claims. The refund system set up to allow companies to recover illegally collected tariffs from the U.S. government went live on Monday as thousands of companies rushed to file claims. So far, so good, though the system was a little glitchy, said Jay Foreman, CEO of toy maker Basic Fun, which had a team in its war room at its headquarters in Boca Raton, Florida, ready to start filing when the system went live at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Foreman said the system didn't crash as some had feared it might under the onslaught of attempted submissions, but rather would sometimes not allow an upload and force them to retry. The company has over 500 files it needs to upload to the system, although the system permits these to be uploaded in batches. However, if you load too many or the system is too busy, it will kick them back, Foreman said in an email about how the process was working in the early moments. We've got over 50% of our invoices loaded so far, and we are hoping in the next few hours to have them all loaded. I'm very happy we got this process started early. Companies contacted by Reuters in recent days expressed concerns about the durability of the new system created by the U.S. Customs and Border Protection in response to a court order that it prepared to return up to $166 billion to importers. I'm relieved that the portal seems to be functioning properly, said Casey Abel, CEO of Idaho-based outerwear company Wild Rye. Abel has her customer broker made the submission, which she said cost her $250 for the first phase of the filing. The U.S. Supreme Court in February struck down the tariffs President Trump pursued under a law meant for use in national emergencies, handing the Republican president a stinging defeat. In court filings, customs officials said on the 9th of April, some 56,497 importers had completed the necessary steps to receive electronic refunds, an amount totaling $127 billion, or more than 3/4 of the total eligible to be refunded. More than 330,000 importers paid the tariffs at issue on 53 million shipments of import goods. It is unclear whether getting a refund claim into the portal as soon as possible will impact how quickly it's processed, but many companies decided to not take the risk of waiting. A CBP spokesman said on Friday the system will efficiently process refunds pursuant to court order for importers and brokers who paid the duties. Rick Woldenberg, CEO of educational toy maker Learning's Resource, said he's heard some users experience temporary crashes, but he wasn't among them. I think it was sort of like everyone was lined up to get Taylor Swift tickets. They all hit the button at once, Woldenberg said. Learning Resources, one of the plaintiffs in the lawsuit that led to the tariffs undoing, is seeking some $10 million in refunds. The company has filed about 5,000 entries, and so far the vast majority have been accepted. Woldenberg voiced some frustration at having to file for reimbursement at all, saying they have a ruling from the Supreme Court that says they over-collected taxes, so why do I have to tell them to send it back? Still, he said he was impressed with how smoothly the system has run so far. The policies set at the top have nothing to do with the professionals who work in CBP, and those folks have done a good job, an earnest job, said Woldenberg. Lynn Lee, Brown, global trade partner at EY, said the firm's clients have largely seen the system accept most submissions without problem, but that the first phase of submission included easier ones that are less complex. Brown said that once the entries are accepted by the system, they are then sent to a mass processing phase that is supposed to automate the payment of refunds within 60 to 90 days. This is the latest twist in a drawn-out battle over emergency tariffs collected over the past year and Trump seeking to restructure U.S. trade relations.
That's confusing.
Very. And now, as part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, you can call us at 716-821-5555. Melvin M. Lee, Sr., James Bernstein, Colby H. Foss, Jr., Rosemarie Kaminsky Wojciechowski, Raymond Paulini, Sr., Reverend Robert W. Wardensky, August Ray Detita, Detitta, Russell James Gugino. And as part, and if you need further information on any of these names, please call us again at 716-821-5555.
And now we're here for a little bit of entertainment with the Royal Stars. Happy birthday for Tuesday, April 21st of 2026. You're proud, dignified, self-possessed, and you set yourself high standards because you are self-reliant. This year, you will reap the benefits of your hard work. Expect power and leadership, and the stars show the kind of day you'll have. 5 being dynamic, 4 positive, 3 average, 2 so-so, and 1 difficult. And we're kind of mid to low spectrum today. Aries is 2 stars. Focus on home and family today. However, tread carefully because some kind of confusion might cloud issues at home tonight. Patience. Taurus is 3 stars. Your imagination is heightened today, which is excellent for those in the creative arts. However, don't jump to conclusions tonight. Be clear. Gemini's 2 stars. If making a serious purchase today, be careful. You might be tempted to buy something too luxurious tonight. Listen. Cancer is 3 stars. Today the moon is in your sign, which gives you a little edge over all the other signs. Nevertheless, because it's at odds with fuzzy Neptune, you might have a distorted view of things tonight. Be strong. Leo is 3 stars. You make a great impression on others because the sun and fair Venus are at the top of your chart tonight. Courage. Virgo, 3 stars. If you can travel or do something different to make your day exciting, do so. However, stay within the realms of practical reality tonight. Be understanding. Libra, 2 stars. You're high vis today, which means people notice you more than usual. Some people will know personal details about your private life. Tonight, be cautious. Scorpios, 3 stars. Normally you have penetrating insight and not easily fooled, but today, however, you might fall for some kind of propaganda, religious or political ideas that are not clear tonight. Listen to your conscience. Sagittarius, 3 stars. Be clear about issues related to social outings, sports events, and above all, dealing with your kids tonight. Check your finances. Capricorn is 2 stars. Discussions with partners, spouses, and close friends are confusing today. You might wonder if someone's on the level or if they're playing fast and loose with the truth tonight. Don't be naive. Aquarius, plans related to your job, your health, and maybe even a pet are susceptible to misinterpretation or misdirection today. Tonight, get your facts. And Pisces, 3 stars. Romance might be disappointing today, or perhaps a social occasion or something to do with sports or your kids tonight. Be understanding, but straight.
You are listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo News for April 21st on your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return for more readings after the short break. Your readers today are
JJ Patek
and Lita.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window. in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your readers are
Lita.
and JJ Patek. And let's see, where am I? Witness testifies about cut screen in Meindl's house. And this is from Aaron Bessiger. Inside Deborah Meindl's house on February 17th of 1993, police found dresser drawers pulled open and papers strewn about her bedroom. City of Tonawanda police found no sign of forced entry to the homicide scene at Franklin Street. And in one of the strange details of the crime, a window screen that had been cut was done so by someone standing inside the home. The crime lab analyst who determined 33 years ago from which direction the cut was made to the screen testified Monday in Brian Scott Lorenz's second retrial for the homicide of Meindl, a 33-year-old mother of two who was strangled after returning home from nursing school. In addition to the cut marks on the screen, there were also scrape marks where the mesh of the screen was damaged but not cut through, said Michael Dujanovic, whose examination of the window screen for Erie County Central Police Services Forensic Laboratory included microscopic analysis. In one of those sprayed areas, I noticed dirt and debris that had covered the screen on the inside, but on the outside, none of the dirt or debris had been displaced at all, Dujanovic said. Lorenz's defense attorneys have suggested that a window screen cut from the inside signifies an attempt to make the Meindl home look like the scene of a burglary. Dujanovic currently works part-time as a firearm examiner for the lab. He was a director of the lab during the investigation of Meindl's slaying and until he retired from full-time work at the end of 2007. Lorenz, 56, faces murder and burglary charges. He was originally convicted in 1994 and his conviction was overturned in 2023. His first retrial last year ended in a mistrial due to a hung jury. Lorenz's defense attorneys are expected to begin presenting their case on Tuesday. Jurors on Monday also heard continued testimony from retired City of Tonawanda Police Chief Daniel M. Brady, a prosecution witness who first took the witness stand on Friday. Brady was one of the investigators who worked on the original case. Prosecutors have based their case against Lorenz on statements from 6 witnesses who testified at this trial or previous trial that Lorenz made admissions about his role in the crime. Lorenz's defense attorneys have pointed blame at Meindl's husband, Donald, who investigators were told wanted his wife dead and believe may have hired someone to do it.
And over in the retail local news, could Hyatt's All Things Creative, a popular longtime art supply store on Elmwood Avenue, be on its way out? It could if co-owner and largest shareholder Pete Hyatt gets his way in a lawsuit filed this month in Erie County Supreme Court. That suit alleges that the company is being mismanaged by the other family members who own stakes in the business and that they're freezing Pete Hyatt out. The lawsuit asks the judge to dissolve Hyatt's Graphic Supply, the commercial company founded in 1959 by his father Charles, which owns the art supply store at 1941 Elmwood Avenue. Peter Hyatt and his brother Greg bought the business from their father in 1988. They are the only 2 people on Hyatt's board of directors and share 50-50 voting rights. Greg's daughters, Sarah Hyatt and Elizabeth Martin, are shareholders without voting rights. Peter owns 411 shares, Greg owns 151, while Sarah and Beth each own 150, according to court papers. The company is structured as an S corporation for tax purposes. Greg Hyatt, in a statement, said Hyatt's isn't going anywhere. The company believes that there is no merit to the litigation brought by Peter Hyatt and is confident it will continue to serve its loyal customers for many years to come, he said in a statement. Peter contends he and his brother managed Hyatt's business equally for decades, but that Greg and his daughters have schemed to wrest control of Hyatt's diverse corporate profits and lock Peter out of meaningful participation in the business. Greg has repeatedly acted without board approval, ignored governance restrictions, and created Hyatt's like his personal piggy bank, Peter alleges. Peter said the other shareholders have unlawfully made decisions for the company without him, withheld shareholder profit distributions, and denied Peter access to corporate records and financial information. He accuses Greg of giving out excessive salaries and unearned bonuses to his daughters and Elizabeth's husband, Seth. Peter also alleges he was the victim of intimidation meant to force Peter into selling his ownership interests on unfair terms, and that Greg improperly tried to oust him from the board. In addition to diverting funds to his daughters and son-in-law Greg, sent Peter weekly warning notices as though he were a low-level employee to harass Peter, Peter said in court papers. Dissolving the company is the only way to prevent any further waste and misappropriation of corporate assets, Peter said in a court paper. The legal dispute has been simmering for 2 years. In 2024, Pete sued Greg, Sarah, and Elizabeth for breach of fiduciary duty in a case that is still pending and which has resulted in court interventions, such as temporary restraining orders and preliminary injunctions. Judicial dissolution, also referred to as the corporate death penalty, is a court-ordered termination of a business entity. It's usually sought when continued operation of a company is impossible due to internal disputes, fraud, or mismanagement. In the case of a judicial dissolution, the court intervenes to dissolve the company, liquidating assets, settling debts, and distributing any remaining funds to stakeholders. The parties are due in court on the 5th of May.
I used to shop there a lot. That's sad. Well, Kearney calls ties with U.S. a weakness. This is from Jim Morris of the Associated Press. In Vancouver, British Columbia, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney said in a video address that Canada's strong economic ties to the United States were once a strength, but now are a weakness that must be corrected. In a 10-minute address, Carney spoke about his government's efforts to strengthen the Canadian economy by attracting new investments and signing trade deals with other countries. The world is more dangerous and divided, Carney said. The U.S. has fundamentally changed its approach to trade, raising its tariffs to levels last seen during the Great Depression. Many of our former strengths, based on our close ties to America, have become weaknesses that we must correct. Carney said tariffs imposed by President Trump have affected workers in the auto and steel industries. Carney added that businesses are holding back investments, restrained by the pall of uncertainty that's hanging over all of us. Many Canadians have also been angered by Trump's comments suggesting Canada become the 51st state. Carney said he plans to give Canadians regular updates on his government's efforts to diversify away from the U.S. Security can't be achieved by ignoring the obvious or downplaying the very real threats that we Canadians face, he said. I promise you, I will never sugarcoat our challenges. It's not the first time Carney, who served as central bank governor, first at the Bank of Canada and later with the Bank of England, has spoken out about a shift in world power. His comments came days after securing a major government following special election wins as the opposition Conservatives pushed him to deliver a U.S. trade deal, which was among his promises in last year's election. A review of the current version of the North American Free Trade Agreement between Canada, the U.S., and Mexico is scheduled for July. In his address, Carney said he wants to attract new investments into Canada, double the size of clean energy capacity, and reduce trade barriers within the country. He also emphasized Canada's increased defense spending, reduction in taxes, and efforts to make housing more affordable. We have to take care of ourselves because we can't rely on one foreign partner, he said. We can't control the disruption coming from our neighbors. We can't control our future in the hope it will suddenly stop. We can control what happens here. We can build a stronger country that can withstand disruptions from abroad.
And in the Spotlight column, in Buffalo, Hochul links her investment in public safety to historic drop in crime. Violent crime and shootings in the city of Buffalo are at a historic low, Governor Kathy Hochul said Monday during her visit to Buffalo. While here, the governor also made it clear her level of anger at state correction officers who participated in an illegal strike last year remains high. Joined by top local officials at the office of Erie County District Attorney Michael Keene, the Buffalo-born Hochul touted state budget investments in law enforcement and collaboration among agencies as reasons why violent crime is at a 10-year low and shootings at a 20-year low in the city. Keene said that from 2021 to 2025, shootings in Buffalo dropped 67% and that homicides by gun violence plummeted 66%. When I first came into office in 2021, crime was out of control. It was surging all over the state of New York, Hochul said. Places like Buffalo were literally under siege. People were anxious, afraid to walk the streets, afraid to go out, afraid to conduct their everyday lives. There was a genuine fear everywhere, but I'm here to tell you that surge is officially over. Hochul, a Democrat, is in her first elected term. She is seeking re-election in November against Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman, a Republican who is focused on his county's status as the safest county in America. On Sunday, Blakeman's X account alleged in a post that crime has increased 25% under Hochul. An email to Blakeman's campaign seeked comment was not immediately returned. Hochul said around 28 communities that belong to the state's Gun-Involved Violence Elimination, or GIVE initiative, which includes Buffalo, Cheektowaga, Lackawanna, Amherst, Niagara Falls, and Jamestown, shootings with injury are down 84% since 2021 and down 57% since last year. Hochul said over the last 4 years, the state pumped $3 billion into public safety and increased aid to district attorneys from $41 million in 2022 to $183 million. Public safety is the foundation of everything, Hochul said. You cannot have a strong economy or a vibrant place to raise families, start a business if people are worried about crime. And so this is why this is such incredible good news, to let people know that the situation is now under control, it is stable, and you don't have to worry so much about this as you had in the past. Keene said the 39 homicides recorded in Erie County last year marked the lowest tally according to records dated to 1984. The county has 7 homicides in 2026, and there has been 13 at this time last year. It's not just a one-year blip, Erie County Executive Mark Poloncarz said. Buffalo Mayor Sean Ryan said the trends show Buffalo is moving in the right direction in battling crime. Earlier this month, Buffalo experienced 3 homicides in 4 days. Officials acknowledged crime can never be eliminated entirely. You shouldn't lose track of the incredible progress that we're making, Keene said. A reporter asked Hochul about safety concerns expressed by the head of the State Corrections Officers Union about conditions in the state prisons. Chris Summers, who heads the New York State Correctional Officers and Police Benevolent Association, has repeatedly said the state's Humane Alternatives to Long-Term Solitary Confinement Act, or the HALT law, which reduces the time inmates can be isolated, puts officers in jeopardy. Republican state lawmakers have also said the law prevents officers from being able to discipline inmates who become violent. Hochul responded that the prison system is a challenging and complicated place. She then quickly highlighted the 22-day strike between February and March of 2025 by officers who, without New York State and NYSCO PBA approval, walked off the job to protest HALT, increasing inmate violence, marathon shifts, and a poor work-life balance. The strike moved Hochul to order National Guard members to patrol prisons. She later fired some 2,000 of the strikers, but around 900 have since been rehired as the State Department of Corrections and Community Supervision seeks to fill thousands of vacancies. Hochul said the strikers left their fellow officers and other employees unprotected amid the potential of prison violence. I'll never get over that, by the way, Hochul said. That was the lowest of the low that people would do that. In February, an inmate at Lakeview Shock Incarceration Correctional Facility in Chautauqua County attacked a woman working in the facility and an officer. The inmate's actions caused the woman to require hospital treatment for injuries to her jaw, neck, and head. It left the officer with a concussion. On the 15th of April, the same inmate attacked and injured 6 officers at Attica Correctional Facility in Wyoming County, injuring all the officers and requiring one of them to need treatment at ECMC, according to James Miller, a spokesperson for the union. Union officials have questioned why the state has not expanded the use of segregated confinement to discipline inmates as recommended by an advisory panel of state and union officials formed after the strike. Hochul said correction officers have one of the hardest jobs in the state and that she respects them. She said over the last year, assaults on staff have dropped 14%, contraband is down 20%, and seizures of illegal weapons in jail is down 26%. I'm not saying the situation is acceptable. I'm saying that progress has been made in all the areas that the union raised to us as being a real challenge to them, she said, and I want to make it work, and I'll continue to be vested in that. And you are listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 15 minutes past the hour.
And yay, we move on to sports. The Sabres know the puck doesn't stop here. And we'll be reading an article by Mike Harrington. These dogs get bite back to draw first blood versus the Bruins in Game 1. Dogs have to be dogs. That's how Rasmus Dahlin explained what in the world we saw late Sunday night in the KeyBank Center. The Buffalo Sabres found plenty of bite just in time. What looked like a crushingly disappointing shutout loss in a game the organization and fan base had waited 15 years to see suddenly turned into one that will live forever in the history of the franchise. Two beast-like goals by Tage Thompson, the winner by Matthias Samuelsson, the empty netter by Alex Tuch. 4 goals in the last 7 minutes, 58 seconds to turn a 2-0 deficit into a 4-3 win over the shell-shocked Boston Bruins. It's their first game. It's only 1 win, but it feels like a lot more. Okay. How big was Thompson's bark on this one? We want to go into games being the guys that are going to make the difference, Thompson explained. Every guy in the NHL, especially on our team, is a guy that wants to go over the boards to make an impact every time they touch the ice. If you don't, then you probably shouldn't be playing this sport. It's something we really like to tell each other and see who can be the game changer. As Dahlin put it, Thompson showed up and led the team. That was special. We're going to need him more. The clock ticked past 8 minutes left and our Bruins were still ahead 2-0. When Elias Lindholm scored just 68 seconds in the third period, I felt like the Sabres were toast, and not a whole lot seemed to be going on. After what we've seen the last 4 months, shame on all of us for doubting them. Thompson robbed Jeremy Swayman blind with a wraparound goal coming from behind Swayman's left when the goalie was looking right. It broke the dam. Thompson scored again. Jack Quinn made a super pass to set up Samuelson's winner, and when the Sabres got to 2-2, you felt like they weren't settling for overtime. They were on their toes, the Bruins were on their heels, and the frothing, full-throated crowd was thirsting for more than just what was in their beers. Samuelsson did the honors with a nifty Quinn pass, the goal of his life. I saw Quinner come out of the corner with the puck. I wasn't sure the Boston winger was, but I thought it was pretty open out there. Samuel said, I just tried to call for it. Quinner made an unbelievable play, and I just went short side there. The fans are unbelievable. Going out after we tied it, you could feel the energy within the group, the belief within the group, the energy the fans provided, and we just kept trying to roll with that. The citizenry was as good as we expected it to be. Dahlin said he couldn't hear anything on the bench. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen said when Samuelsson scored, it was the loudest building he'd ever heard. Lindy Ruff said the place was shaking much in the way it did when the Sabres were beating Philadelphia and Carolina in 2006. I can report firsthand all that to be true, especially the last part. There's no question my chair in the press box was moving and vibrating from the noise. I've sat in that exact spot since 2007 and have never felt anything like that. The atmosphere was unbelievable, Ruff said. It was great to give our fans that third period. According to OptaStats, the Sabres became the first team in the NHL postseason history to win in regulation when facing a multiple goal shutout deficit in the final 8 minutes. Obviously, that's a mouthful, but it shows how epic and how shocking this comeback was. Ruff said he thought the Sabres kept pushing and their physicality mattered. They had 53 hits in this series opener and the Bruins had 38. Boston coach Marco Sturm better reponder which team is more physical. Samuelson had 9 hits, and Ruff called him an absolute stud in this game. Alex Took had 10, and won a huge battle down low to set up Thompson's second goal. In the Bruins locker room following the morning skate, old friend Casey Mittelstadt nailed his prediction of what the scene would be like. I'm expecting pretty much bedlam. I wouldn't expect anything else, he said. I've been in plenty of Bills games, guessing it's going to be a little bit like that, so yeah, it'll be a blast. I'm excited to get to experience. Mittelstadt got the full effect of the first playoff game in Buffalo since he was 12. Can't ever remember seeing so many fans in the seats for warm-ups as we did Sunday. We had Sabretooth rappelling from the rafters to Rock You Like a Hurricane in a great throwback to 2006. Fan signs featured on the Jumbotron included, "We're back, deal with it America," a slogan Buffalo originally made famous in the 1990s during the Bills' Super Bowl runs. The fans sang along to the team's Better Days video that played a part of the pregame show. The late legendary voice Rick Jenneret got plenty of attention with signs that "Do it for RJ" and "RJ's house." The Sabres unveiled his first framed sweater outside the broadcast booth, and Sandra Cupcake Jenneret, his wife, was the pregame drum banger in answer to a question that had been all over social media for weeks. For 52 minutes, Swayman was pitching a shutout and was the best player on the ice. David Pastrnak and Morgan Geekie had 2 points apiece. Buffalo power play was 0-4, over 4, and heavily discombobulated on its final two attempts. Things were going badly, and then they weren't. We've been in situations when we've been behind in games and found our way, Thompson said. When you do that, you get confidence. Sure did. It changed so suddenly, amazingly.
Indeed.
Yeah, how come Buffalo likes to come up from behind so much this year?
I don't care as long as they do it. Doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. And now I just present a brief interlude, very brief, about our little Josh Allen, who's now a daddy. The want to win hasn't changed for Josh Allen and never will. The why certainly has, though, for the Buffalo Bills quarterback. Allen and his wife Haley welcomed the birth of their first child, a daughter, earlier this month. On Monday, the quarterback spoke publicly for the first time since the monumental moments in his life. I think it definitely changes the mindset a little bit, he said. I am very excited. I do think this is going to be the best version of myself in all aspects in my professional career and my personal life. It's such a blessing, and I've got an absolute rock star of a wife that's doing so many things right now and allowing me to be here right now and be with my teammates. So yes, special times. Allen said he hasn't slept much since the couple made their announcement on the 2nd of April, but that he wouldn't want it any other way. It's very rewarding. That want to win will never change. The why I want to do it has, Allen said, after participating in the Bills' off-season program. So why I want to do it and to show my family, to show my daughter how hard you need to work in order to accomplish something so great. As long as I play this game, that's going to be my mindset. It was important for Allen to be at the first day of the Bills' voluntary off-season program, even though it came just days after his daughter's birth. With a new head coach taking over in Joe Brady, who was promoted from offensive coordinator, having Allen present sends a message through the rest of the locker room. If he can be here, what reason would any other player have for not being present? We have a lot of new guys, a lot of new coaches, new faces in the building, Allen said. Just wanted to make sure that my presence is felt here and trying to relay what Joe has in store for us and make sure that I can be the best version of myself and be the best leader for this team that I can be. It also meant a lot to Brady, who is tasked with establishing his own culture and knows that he faces immediate pressure to win big right away. You guys know how I feel about Josh, right? I'm fortunate for the relationship that we have, the coach said. He's got a lot going on in his life. It's hard for me to tell other people, hey man, I'd love for you to be here. But the guy that I've been spending so much time with the last few years, if he wasn't here, right? That was important to me. It was a great tone setter because everybody understands how important the organization, the Bills, everything that we do is for him and to him. That having a baby was a life change, and him to be like, okay, but I also got a job to do, I'm going to come to be with my guys and do what I have to do speaks to kind of who he is. Brady and Allen spent less time together now than they did when Brady was initially joining the Bills as the team's quarterback coach prior to 2022. During that season, they talked every day. Then, when Brady became offensive coordinator, his attention spread to include the other position groups on that side of the ball. Now he's in charge of the entire operation. I'm hearing what he's trying to convey to the team and then doing my best to be a mouthpiece for him, Allen said. That message right now, according to Allen, put the ball down. Meaning, it doesn't matter the circumstance, the Bills will aim to be a team that has the competitive stamina to play 4 quarters or more against anyone. We got guys that are working extremely hard right now, and it's a fun vibe, but also very competitive edge to us right now, quarterback said. We're all trying to make each other better. Allen turns 30 in exactly 1 month and is entering his 9th NFL season. Although he's been a father for less than a month, he's already mastered the art of the dad joke. I'm not too sure on the science of the athletic peak of a male, but I think it's slightly beyond 30, he said. And then hopefully the dad strength kicks in, right? Is that what they say? I think just getting back to playing this game the way I love to play it, having fun, enjoying my teammates, enjoying this game. I know we've talked about a lot, not focusing on the results, but continuing to love the grind, love going out there and practicing, love trying to get better. The results will come with that. To that end, Allen is healthy and able to participate in the team's off-season program after undergoing foot surgery at the end of 2025 to repair a broken bone. The injury was aggravated as Allen tried to avoid Browns pass rusher Myles Garrett during a game in December. Doctors determined that Allen had actually suffered the break previously, perhaps even 5 or 10 years ago, but it had healed to the point that it was not painful. Allen insisted he could not recall which game he might have originally been hurt in. It's hard to say, he said. Again, it's kind of my own fault. Sometimes after games, I'm bumped and bruised, and I turn down a lot of x-rays, and Bill's head athletic trainer, Nate Bresky, is always giving me crap about it. I'm just like, I'm good. I'm playing Sunday. It doesn't matter. So I honestly couldn't tell you when it happened. Allen joked that he wanted to keep the bone fragment that was removed, but it was apparently disposed of quickly. I really wanted it. It may be floating out there. Who knows? Black market or something, he said. Keep an eye on an eBay listing for that pop up unexpectedly.
Buy a piece of Josh Allen. The dad jokes. I know people who love those dad jokes.
Yeah, me
They're
too.
horrible. Oh, back to the Sabres. After a completely crazy comeback win, there's more work to do, and this is from Lance Lazowski. A plaque inside their dressing room symbolizes the long journey the Buffalo Sabres will travel if they manage to accomplish their goal. Dear God, please. In the middle of the plaque, placed between two crossing sabres, is the Stanley Cup. On the perimeter, there are 16 puck-sized slots to represent each one it will take for them to bring Buffalo a championship. Late Sunday night, as the Sabres savored the euphoria that can only be achieved by winning a game in the Stanley Cup playoffs, Coach Lindy Ruff walked to the middle of their dressing room and placed a puck in one of the slots. Okay, the players applauded. The celebration continued, but it could not last long. 12 hours later, they returned to KeyBank Center to revisit their 4-3 victory over the Boston Bruins in Game 1 of the first-round series. To take a 2-0 series lead Tuesday night, the Sabres must fix the minor mistakes within a game that caused them to trail by 2 goals and fail to score until the 52nd minute of the franchise's first playoff game in 15 years. After he highlighted the areas where they must improve, Ruff told the Sabres players to move on. It's a best-of-7 series, and there's an irritated opponent that will want revenge. It's a desperate situation for them, Ruff said of the Bruins. No team really wants to go down 2-0, and we'd like to put them in that situation. The Sabres aren't going to catch the Bruins off guard either. The full 4-goal third period Sunday night could be the wake-up call they needed. It's not a mystery how they view the matchups. Marco Sturm, their coach, suggested last week that his team is bigger and stronger because they won 3 out of the 4 regular season meetings by executing the areas that are necessary to winning the playoffs. Puck battles, boxing around their net, relentless forechecking, selfless shot blocking, finishing checks and maintaining patience until their opponent makes a mistake. The Sabres beat the Bruins at their own game Sunday night. The Atlantic Division champions didn't force passes or try to create chances off the rush. It wasn't the run-and-gun hockey some outside Buffalo have suggested they play. Ruff's players put the NHL on notice by proving they're ready to do everything necessary to have a chance to win. After their physicality got questioned, the Sabres had a season-high 53 hits. It wasn't because they failed to control the puck either. They had 24 more shot attempts and 18 more shots on goal. The Bruins scored first. Morgan Geekie shot from the slot when a bouncing puck rolled to him, and they led 2-0 just 1 minute 8 seconds into the third period, but the Sabres were the aggressor for most of the games. If it weren't for Bruins goalie Jeremy Swayman, a comeback would not have been necessary. He was stellar in Game 1. We just had a game plan and we stuck with it, said Sabres winger Alex Tuch. I think we were just a little bit more assertive in the second half of the game and we got some good opportunities out of it. We were able to cash in on a couple of those, but yeah, really structured team. We were focused on us and how we were trying to impose our will and just kept pushing. Didn't slow down and just kept trying to drive the pace. Surprisingly, Sturm seemed content with the way the Bruins played for 50 minutes. He didn't expand on his opinions during his post-game press conference, but he must have found confidence within several key areas the Sabres must address if they're going to take a 2-0 series lead and advance to the next round. Special teams are a priority for the Sabres. Their power play is amid a 0 for 26 slump. And they've had 4 shots on goal in 7 minutes 47 seconds of power playing in Game 1. Their penalty kill, ranked 4th in the NHL League during the regular season, has allowed a goal in back-to-back games. At even strength, they need to create more space in the neutral and offensive zones. It took them until second half of the second period Sunday night to start creating high-danger scoring chances. Their success began with puck battles along the wall and an emphasis from Ruff to have 3 forwards closer together in the offensive zone. The Sabres also need to screen Swayman more often. Jason Zucker blocked Swayman's vision when Matthias Samuelsson scored the go-ahead goal. It needs to happen more often. There also needs to be more attention paid to David Pastrnak, who got behind Buffalo's defense for 2 breakaways. We feel the longer we stay in our game, the better the chances we can to win a hockey game, said Ruff. Well, who doesn't? We all hope we win.
Yes. And you are listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier radio reading service. The time is 32 minutes past the hour. And, okay, just one more story about the Buffalo Sabres. The Big Bad Bruins may be more cuddly now. Silencing the deafening roar in an arena filled with playoff-starved hockey fans did not require a remarkable individual effort from a superstar player, nor an egregious mistake by a team lacking playoff experience. Rasmus Dahlin, the Buffalo Sabres captain, put his body on the line to block David Pasternak's shot, but the puck went directly to the slot. With a flick of both wrists, Boston Bruin wingers Connor Geekie scored the first goal of their first-round playoff series Sunday night in KeyBank Center. Keeping the 19,070 fans quiet, however, required more than the Bruins were able to deliver. 8 minutes away from winning Game 1, they allowed 4 goals in less than 5 minutes to lose to the Sabres 4-3. We were exactly where we wanted to play. Being in that position 5 or 6 minutes left in the game, said Bruins coach Marco Sturm, you could tell they got a little bit frustrated, and yeah, we made pretty much 2 mistakes to let them tie up the game. Obviously, with the crowd behind them, they got some life, and the game is done. Very unfortunate, because my guys played really well, but that's playoffs. That's something we have to learn again the hard way. We just have to stick with it for 60 minutes. If this was the Bruins' ideal approach for most of a playoff game, then they're in trouble. It took longer than they would have preferred, but the Sabres found answers. In some ways, Sturm's assessment was accurate. His team did not allow a goal for 52 minutes, but Boston also created next to nothing offensively, aside from its 2 goals, and it imploded at the first sign of trouble. The arena in downtown Buffalo shook when Tage Thompson scored twice in a span of 3 minutes and 42 seconds, and again less than a minute later as Matthias Samuelsson's wrist shot went over the shoulder of Bruins goalie Jeremy Swayman. After Thompson's tying goal, Boston players lost their composure. Sabres defenseman Logan Stanley got punched in the face, and 2 Bruins went after Zach Benson. The Bruins weren't leading because they're the more talented team. They were just having more success at all the details within the game that leads to wins during the Stanley Cup playoffs. And if Boston finds a way to rally from the 1-0 series deficit, it won't be a product of speed or skill. To survive and advance, the Bruins want to frustrate the Sabres into game-changing mistakes. Sturm, their first-year head coach, took a not-so-subtle jab at the Sabres earlier last week, when he called his team bigger and stronger. The comment, albeit poorly worded, was spot on, and he knew Sunday morning when a reporter raised the topic during a press conference. It was very plain to see when we were on top of our game and we were hard on the puck, strong on pucks. We're physical. We have a chance, Sturm said of the team's 4 regular season meetings, and if we decide to play their right, might as well stay at home because we're that good. Who's better at boxing out forwards in front of their net? Who disrupts more passes through the neutral zone? Which team can fight through traffic to get to a loose puck? Are you able to wear out your opponent by finishing checks? Is your neutral zone forecheck detailed and organized? Are you forcing your opponent to settle for perimeter shots, attempts, while you wait patiently for them to make a mistake? For 50 minutes Sunday night, the Bruins were better in most of those areas. The Sabres had a 27-13 edge in shots on goals at the second intermission, but most of those did not challenge Swayman. According to Natural Star Stat Trek, Buffalo had just 3 high-danger scoring chances at 5-on-5 through 30 minutes. Over the final 30 minutes, Boston gave up 7 high-danger scoring chances. On the Sabres' first goal, Peyton Krebs won a puck battle behind the Bruins' net, and on the tying goal, Thompson and Alex Tuch battled for the puck until Thompson stick-handled to the front of the net to beat Swayman with 4 minutes and 16 seconds left in regulation. On the go-ahead goal, Samuelsson had time and space to shoot, while Jack Quinn screened Swayman. They did a great job of penetrating our zone, and there was a lot of quality chances, said Swayman, who made 34 saves. That's important to reduce those and at the same time keep them at bay and do a great job at blocking shots and making simple plays to limit that zone time. The Sabres controlled the puck for most of the game. Based on the post-game comments for Sturm and his players, Boston expects the trend to continue. The Bruins will be content if they lose the time of possession battle. Their focus is on playing disciplined defense and working patiently to force their opponent into a mistake. Trouble began for Buffalo in the first period when Ryan McLeod attempted a no-look pass to try to get out of his zone. Twice, Pastrnak earned a breakaway, only to be stopped by Sabres goalie UPL. Don't be surprised when it happens again. Lindy Ruff mentioned to reporters Sunday morning that no one in the league is as good at assessing risk as Pastrnak because he knows when to leave his defensive zone to try to cheat for offense. But the Sabres' penalty kill went 2 for 3, and they gave up just 1 high-danger scoring chance in the second period. We didn't see the big bad Bruins that Sturm portrayed in a press conference last week. From the start, Buffalo was the more physical team. Samuelsson leveled Marat Kushtanovdanov. The Sabres swarmed the net each time there was a scoring chance, and a less experienced team may be shocked following a loss as brutal as this one. The Bruins weren't. Some of their players have seen it all, including this season. Twice they lost 6 games in a row. They lost 5 in a row less than 3 weeks ago. They knew when they left for Buffalo that this had the potential to be a long, difficult series. If anyone in Boston's locker room had doubts, the Sabres showed they're not to be underestimated. We knew they were going to come out the way they did and just try to weather the storm, Geekie said. They got one early, and we got back on our heels a little bit. It's the playoffs. That's how the games are going to be now. We've just got to find ways to weather their push and continue to play our game and close the next one out.
Thank you. And from our Eric Thompson, we have an advice column asking Eric. Dear Eric, I've had the same best friend for the majority of our lives, and today I'm confused and saddened due to a huge change in our relationship. For most of those years, we were each other's therapists, helping each other through a series of very trying times. No secrets and a lot of honesty. She is historically fragile, now suffering stress from a work issue caused by her manager. This happened years before in such a serious way that my friend had to take 3-month medical leave of absence due to what was likely a nervous breakdown. I'm confused because now my friend won't enlighten me with any details. During COVID, she and I began doing FaceTime once a week. We live 100 miles apart. These meetings have become, for me, more like an obligation. She works from home and has little to talk about, whereas my life is full and complicated. So I'm doing most of the talking. A few times a year, she and I meet for a day of shopping and a long lunch. My friend has always been ultra sensitive and easily offended, misconstruing my questions, and so I in turn keep things inside, especially lately. We're at an impasse. Damned if I say something, damned if I don't. I'm very frustrated. I wonder if perhaps we need a break from this weekly FaceTime, or has this friendship reached its expiration date? And it's signed, Missing My Old Bestie. I answered, Dear Bestie, from your letter it sounds like you've always had to censor yourself around your friend at least a little bit. So I wonder if what is feeling like a huge change is actually a slow progression. That's not to say it's a lost cause. Every friendship goes through seasons, and it's clear that, even without knowing the details of what else is going on in her life, this is a season where she feels more isolated. Even though you want and have tried to be there for her, there just may be a narrative playing in her head that tells her to keep it all in. You can address it gently in a state of the friendship conversation. Use I statements and try not to make broad generalizations. I would like to share more with you and hear more about what's going on in your life, but I feel sometimes like it's not what you want. Have I got it wrong? True, she could also take these questions the wrong way, but at least you're opening up the door for clear communication. Another option is to ask that you pivot your conversations to a topic or activity, like a book club or a TV club, something that you both have opinions and thoughts about that may feel less like a minefield. Well, good luck. Dear Eric, I've been thinking a lot lately about the epidemic of loneliness we keep hearing about. After a few recent outings, I've come to a frustrating realization. For many, loneliness isn't caused by a lack of people in their lives, but by a profound lack of social and emotional skills. I've spent time recently with two friends out of a sense of obligation because they're both quite lonely. However, witnessing their interactions was eye-opening. In one instance, a woman shared her beautiful wedding dress with us. My reaction was genuine excitement. My friend's reaction was a flat, oh, uh-huh. In another, a mutual friend announced her pregnancy, and while I was celebrating the news, the other lonely friend's only comment was about the mother's weight gain. Before immediately pivoting the conversation back to photos of her new car. It's exhausting. These individuals struggle to get into someone else's life. They don't seem to realize that you get out of relationships what you put into them. Yeah. They are standing in the middle of a social circle, yet they remain isolated because they lack the ability to provide emotional resonance or celebrate anyone other than themselves. It makes me wonder, can people like this actually be helped, or are they destined to stay lonely because they can't see past their own reflection? And it's signed, Less Lonely. And the answers. Dear Less Lonely, communication and empathy go a really long way in relationships, and it's possible these friends lack social skills, yes, but it's also possible that they're engaging in a way that feels comfortable for them. Everyone has different levels of enthusiasm and different conversational needs, and relationships and friendships, it behooves us all to ask for what we need, especially if we're starting to experience resentment. So the next time one of your friends' comments rubs you wrong, consider kindly but directly saying something to them using I statements. If they don't know that they're exhausting you, they can't fix it or address it. Well,
yes, in any case you're still wondering, because we haven't heard too much about this, the National Guard troops are still roaming the district as deployment drags on. The cherry blossoms draw more than 1 million visitors to Washington's Tidal Basin annually. And this year was no different, except some strolling the area between the Lincoln Memorial and Thomas Jefferson Memorial were dressed in camouflage and armed. 8 months after President Trump declared a crime emergency in the nation's capital and called up the National Guard, more than 2,500 troops remain in a deployment with no clear end in sight. Deployments to other cities have ended or been paused by courts in California and Illinois, while more limited operations are ongoing in cities including New Orleans. But in Washington, Guard members still walk city streets and patrol metro stations, tourist attractions, neighborhoods, and parks. Even with the midterms looming this year, that lingering presence is barely mentioned in city council meetings or by candidates running for mayor and Congress, perhaps reflecting both competing priorities in a sense that local officials have little power to stop it. Unless the courts step in, the Guard will remain at least through the end of the year, if not longer. Taxpayers are paying more than $1 million a day to have them walk around, said Phil Mendelson, chairman of the District of Columbia Council, in an emailed response to questions. And, he said, the presence of armed soldiers on American streets is not a good look. Trump, a Republican, issued an executive order in August to deal with what he called a crime emergency. The order brought the Guard in, along with hundreds of additional federal law enforcement officers. Over the months, Guard members have responded to medical emergencies, assisted with arrests, helped local police enforce the city's juvenile curfew, and carried out beautification projects. Okay. The D.C. Guard helped with snow removal during a major storm in January. While the Guard members do not make arrests, the Trump administration argues their support to the broader mission has helped reduce crime. The White House said 12,000 arrests have been made by the task force since operations began, including 62 known gang members, and thousands of illegal firearms were seized. White House spokesperson Abigail Jackson said the president's crime task force in the city has yielded tremendous results for local communities. Every local leader should want to mimic this success in their own locales, Jackson said. But officials disagree over how much credit the deployment can be given in Washington, a heavily Democratic city. Figures show crime was already on the decline before, although some figures are being investigated after claims arose against local police that they may have been manipulated. A court battle over the Guard deployment is ongoing, and without a judge stepping in, it could go on as long as the White House wants. Asked how long the Guard deployment would continue, Jackson said in an email that there were no announcements to make. The Office of D.C. Attorney General Brian Schwalb, which is challenging the deployment, declined to comment, citing the pending lawsuit. The National Guard Bureau at the Pentagon did not answer requests for comments. Mayor Muriel Bowser, who is not running for re-election, has walked a fine line on the Guard's deployment and the broader federal intervention, at once appearing to work with the president, but also pushing back on some of his demands, like local cooperation for immigration enforcement. Leading candidates to replace Bowser and the city's 18-term non-voting delegate in Congress, Eleanor Holmes Norton, have focused on affordability, statehood, and trying to hold federal agencies accountable for their role in the surge. The District Council, which includes at least 4 candidates for mayor or delegate, unanimously approved a measure to increase transparency in federal law enforcement operations. While the military deployment is mentioned at times on campaign websites and in ads, it isn't currently a central campaign issue. Other pressures on the city, including unemployment and lost revenue tied to federal workforce cuts, have taken priority. The city's primaries are the 16th of June, along with a special election for an at-large city council seat. Some residents say frustrations over the Guard eased after 2 members of the West Virginia contingent were ambushed just blocks from the White House, killing specialist Sarah Beckstrom, 20, and severely injuring her colleague. Kevin Cataldo, a neighborhood commissioner who joined the local Metropolitan Police on a walk-along in his neighborhood recently, said he already treated the Guard members courteously, making a point to acknowledge them because they did not choose to be in the city. The shooting ambush deepened his sympathies for them. That was just horrible, he said. District Council member Brianne Nadeau said constituents continued to ask why the Guard is still around, but the complaints are far fewer than at the start of the deployment. It would be great if the federal government would use its money and resources to help the district on the things we need help with and not act like an invading army, Nadeau said in an email. Fellow council members and mayoral candidates Janice Lewis-George and Kenyon McDuffie have raised similar issues, including the high cost. There has been little recent public polling specifically on attitudes toward the presence of uniformed personnel in U.S. cities. Several groups are planning protests and other events on the 1st of May to oppose the federal surge, including the continuing presence of the National Guard, said Kaya Chatterjee, co-founder and executive director of Free DC, an advocacy group that fights for the city's autonomy. Among the goals, an end to the military occupation of D.C. before the June election. Chatterjee said normalizing the Guard's presence makes it easier to suppress dissident and tilt the playing field in elections. The presence of guns and military personnel could create an intimidating atmosphere during elections, Chatterjee said, and citizens have to step in, and number one, we have to help out neighbors feel safe voting. Scott Michelman, legal director of the American Civil Liberties Union of the District of Columbia, said the situation underscores the city's limits on self-governance. Washington is a federal district with limited autonomy where Congress retains authority to review the city's laws and control its budget, and where the president has direct control of the D.C. Guard and can authorize an indefinite military deployment with little effective resistance from local authorities. D.C. is uniquely disempowered in our systems in many ways, Michelman said.
Thank you. Okay, from Hello, Italy, from the Associated Press, book bans, attempted ones, still at a record high, the ALA says. Book bans and attempted bans remain at record highs according to the American Library Association, and efforts to have titles removed have never been more coordinated or politicized. The ALA on Monday issued its annual list of books most challenged at the county's libraries, part of the Association's State of America's Library Report. Patricia McCormick Sold, a 2006 novel about sex trafficking in India, topped the list for 2025. Others targeted include Stephen Chbosky's high school novel, The Perks of Being a Wallflower, Maya Kobabe's graphic memoir, Genderqueer, and Sarah J. Maas's romantasy favorite, Empire of the Storms. The ALA usually features 10 books, but this year has 11, with 4 tied for 8th place. Anthony Burgess's dystopian classic, A Clockwork Orange, Ellen Hopkins' sibling drama, Identical, John Green's boarding school narratives, Looking for Alaska, and Jennifer L. Armentrout's paranormal romance, Storm and Fury. Objections include LGBTQ plus themes such as genderqueer and The Perks of Being a Wallflower, sexual violence and Sold and A Clockwork Orange, and use of alcohol and cigarettes in Looking for Alaska. Overall, the ALA's Office for Intellectual Freedom recorded challenges to 4,235 different works, topped only by 4,240 in 2023, since the association began keeping track more than 30 years ago. The association defines a challenge as an attempt to have a library resource removed or access to it restricted based on the objections of a person or a group. The list arrives during National Library Week, which runs through Saturday. Libraries exist to make space for every story and every lived experience, ALA President Sam Helmick said in a statement. As we celebrate National Library Week, we reaffirm that libraries are places for knowledge, for access, and for all. The ALA compiles its survey through media accounts and submissions from libraries. The actual numbers are likely much higher because many incidents are never reported, the association acknowledges. For decades, challenges to a given book came from a parent or another member of a local community, but in recent years, the ALA have found the trend has shifted sharply to government officials and such conservative activists as Moms for Liberty, who advocate parental choice in deciding what schools and libraries should make available. Florida, Texas, and Utah are among the many states that have called for books to be banned or passed restrictive legislation. In Iowa, an appellate court ruled earlier this month that the state can enforce a law that limits teachers from talking about LGBTQ plus topics with students in kindergarten through the 6th grade and bans some books. Last year, more than 90% of challenges arose from activists and government officials, according to the ALA, compared to 72% in 2024. In 2025, book bans were not sparked by concerned parents, and they were not the result of local grassroots efforts. Sarah Lambden, executive director of the ALA's Office for Intellectual Freedom, in a statement, they were part of a well-funded, politically driven campaign. Lambden told the Associated Press that activists circulate lists of targeted books nationwide, echoing a report last year from PEN America that tallied multiple bannings of Sold, A Clockwork Orange, and other books. The ALA found that actual removals, more than 5,600, well exceed the number of books challenged. I think this reflects the reality that these lists are getting disseminated widely, Lambden said. You can see video footage from various library board meetings where the same books are singled out over and over again.
And on this day in history, in 1910, author Samuel Langhorne Clemens, better known as Mark Twain, died in Reddington, Connecticut at age 74. In 1918, German Air Force pilot Manfred von Richthofen, nicknamed the Red Baron, was killed at age 25 after being shot during a World War I air battle over Vannes-sur-Somme, France. He was credited with 80 air combat victories. In 1975, with communist forces closing in on Saigon, South Vietnamese President Nguyen Duen Van Do resigned after nearly 10 years in office, fleeing the country 5 days later. In 1980, Rosie Ruiz was the first woman to finish the Boston Marathon, but I remember this, was later exposed as having cheated by entering the race course less than 1 mile before the finish line. Canadian Jacqueline Garou was named the winner. In 2016, Prince, one of the most inventive and influential musicians of modern times, was found dead at his home in suburban Minneapolis from an accidental fentanyl overdose. He was 57. In 2025, Pope Francis, who charmed the world with his humble style and concern for the poor, but alienated conservatives with critiques of capitalism and climate change, died at 88. Born Jorge Mario Bergoglio in Argentina, he became the Catholic Church's first Latin American pontiff when he was elected in 2013. JJ? It's over.
You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for today, Tuesday, April 21st of 2026. We read the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. For more information, call 716-821-5555. The readers today have been
Lita
and JJ Patek, and thank you for listening.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio Reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability,